booktubers, and welcome back to my channel. Yes, there is a cat in the background, don't be alarmed. Today it's Halloween! I love Halloween. Halloween is my Christmas. It is the greatest holiday of the year, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise, okay? Is the best one. Everyone dresses up in costumes, and you just you go and you eat candy and you party and you watch spooky movies and you read spooky books and... You read spooky books? I feel like horror is a genre that has been explored a lot in literature, and yet often when I ask people what they're reading, it's very rare that they tell me they're reading a horror novel. But horror is one of those genres that kind of falls to the wayside until now. Since it's October and since I've been a pretty bad reader this year, I've done a lot of writing, not so much of the reading. I have decided to set myself a proper October TBR or to be read pile, and I want to share it with you guys. The first book on my Halloween TBR is by Christopher Moore. I've totally forgotten the title of it already. This is how you know I haven't read it. The novel is called A Dirty Job, and essentially it's a book about the Grim Reaper. I mean, it is a comedy. Christopher Moore tends to write funny stuff. If you've ever read Lamb, you really understand that sardonic, kind of parody-esque quality that he has. But I mean, what's more Halloween-y than a book about the Grim Reaper? The next book on my TBR is, and I'm gonna have to read this off the book, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. This is a book I've obviously been hearing about for years and years. I actually at one point owned 2 copies. Don't ask me how that happened. I just sort of forgot I had it and then bought it again and still never read it. So this is the year that I finally read this book. I know there's a movie that came out. I haven't seen the movie. Apparently the movie's really terrible, but the book remains extremely popular, so I'm gonna go ahead and trust everyone else's judgment and try to get some Halloween-y fun out of this guy. The third book on my Halloween TBR pile is gonna be Sleeping Beauties by Stephen and Owen King. Owen King is, I believe, the son of Stephen King, unless it's just like a creepy coinkydink. Sleeping Beauties has one of my favorite premises that I've heard about in a long time. This takes place in a world where all the women suddenly, they go to sleep and they cocoon up in gauzy cocoon stuff, and they're asleep, and it's just the men, except for one woman that for some reason didn't go to sleep. So of course she is in big trouble because all these guys are after her either to kill her or do terrible things to her. So it sounds horrifying and also really interesting. I think this has pretty serious Children of Men vibes, and I love Children of Men. So I think I'm gonna like this book. The fourth and possibly final book in my TBR for Halloween is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. Horror Store is probably my favorite actual book that I've seen in a while. By that I mean the binding is so much fun. It looks like an IKEA catalog. I can't even tell you how many people have asked me, are you reading the IKEA catalog? You can see there's even prices of all the stuff on there, which I think is just hilarious. This is a book that I was sort of angry at because it's based on a premise that I wanted to write, and then I found out this book existed. But luckily it's different enough that I could still write my original book. Essentially it is about a couple people who work in this IKEA-esque store, and they get stuck in the store overnight and demons show up. And if that is not the funniest, most Halloween-y premise you've ever heard, I don't know how to help you. I'm so sorry. Now, I wanted to share with you a couple of books that I have read that I definitely recommend for your Halloween TBRs. The first one is the Halloweeniest of Halloween-y books, and that's World War Z. I really want to say Zed because I'm Canadian, but it's World War Z. World War Z is nothing at all like the Brad Pitt movie, although I did really enjoy the Brad Pitt movie. I thought that was pretty much one of the best ways you could adapt the book without properly adapting the book. That doesn't make sense. But World War Z, the novel, is a series of interviews done by the Brad Pitt character, and he goes to all these different points of the world and he says, so we survived the zombie apocalypse, can you tell me some stories about what happened to you during it? So it's almost like real war books. So this premise I think is really unique, really interesting, and a lot of fun as well, because it's not a real war, it's a zombie war. And like, who doesn't want to survive the zombie apocalypse? Oh, nobody wants a zombie apocalypse. Just me? It's just me. Okay, thanks. It's just me. Now, probably the spookiest book I have ever read in my entire life is Nod by Adrian Barnes. Oh, this is a scary book. This is a book that is not for children. So if you are below the age of like 65, it's too scary. Essentially the premise here is everyone, well, they don't wake up one day, but one day everyone realizes nobody slept the night before. Nobody slept a wink except for our narrator and probably like a couple more people around the world. So our narrator is with his girlfriend and she can't sleep, and basically the world is starting to go insane because nobody can fall asleep, and it's a look at that theory of how people can only survive probably for 30 days without sleep, but their minds are gonna go a long time before that. And oh man, this is the most like anxious, angry, upsetting novel I have ever read, and I read it in one sitting because it's so good and has no right to be so good and so scary at the same time. And I highly recommend it, though you literally will become part of the book and you won't be able to sleep the next night, and just thinking about it makes me a little antsy. What? Alright, let's talk classic Halloween horror. If you're a reader, you've probably already read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. However, I highly recommend another read. This is a book that I read in high school and I loved it. I thought it was great. And since then I learned a lot more about science fiction, and I learned a lot more about Mary Shelley and how she's really the creator of science fiction. Sorry, MRAs. And I found this copy of it a couple years ago. I just thought it was the most beautiful copy of the book ever. It has black pages on the side. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. There's even like an ombre going up the pages. And rereading this book, honestly, it's so much better the second time. It's so much better as an adult. You get so much more insight into the characters, particularly Dr. Frankenstein and all of his late friends and lovers. Goodbye. And since I am recommending this book, I have to give you your annual friendly reminder that Frankenstein is the scientist. It's not the creature. I brought more recommendations. What am I doing? I'm so sorry. There's too much to read. Okay, let's talk about Jeff Vandermeer and Born. So Born is a book that I read recently, and it's about a world that is basically overtaken by a freaky glob monster dude, and that's all I'm gonna tell you because it goes wild. I wanted to recommend something that might be a little more difficult to find, but is still an amazing book, and that is The Hunted by Alex Shearer. Essentially, it is about a world where people, they want so badly to stay young that they literally freeze themselves at childhood. And like cannot age from there on. And this is in a world where not a lot of people are having babies, so there's not a lot of real children, and we're following this boy Taryn, who is an actual child and is rented out to families who just want to hang out with a real kid for a while. The world building in here is really concise and clever. There's a Shirley Temple type character who is clearly an adult, who is clearly a 60-year-old child. and it opens up in a really beautiful way. This is definitely a book for younger readers. However, I read it when I was, I think, 20 years old, and I really, really loved it. So definitely a good one for both kids and grown-ups. Not too young kids though, because it's kind of spooky, but it's just such a unique, cool concept, and does have that Halloween element with the speculative element. And finally, we want to talk about some granddaddies. We got your Dracula, you got your Cthulhu, or I mean the Lovecraft Compendium. These are available at Indigo. You can get like 1,000,000 books for $10, and it's all your classics. They have a whole bunch of spooky ones. Dracula by Bram Stoker, I mean, it's definitely a must read. The Lovecraft Compendium, this should actually be my actual TBR because I've only read one of the stories in it, so maybe I'll finish it this Halloween. Yeah, read some Lovecraft, read some Dracula, and let's get spooky with it. If you like this video, if you liked this video, please click on that little thumbs up icon. If you didn't like this video, please click on that thumbs down icon, except please don't click on the thumbs down icon because I'll be very sad, so thumbs up, okay? If you really like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. NaNoWriMo is coming up directly after Halloween, and I want to talk about that with y'all. And if you have any more recommendations for my Halloween TBR, please let me know in the comments. I hope you're all having a great day. I hope you all have a great Halloween. Let me know what you're gonna wear for your costume. And yeah, stay spooky, I guess. Bye. I shouldn't throw books. I'm so sorry. That was such a crime. I'm sorry, Cthulhu. Don't come after me.